morning. Pleased to be joined by Vice Chair Ted Lieu and DCCC Chair Susan Delbene. Just a point of personal pride here. I wanted to take a moment to congratulate hometown hero in San Bernardino, Jaden Phillips, the Cajon High School alum, won the Heisman Trophy over the weekend. We're also proud of what he has accomplished on and off the field. His family's incredibly proud, as is the region that he represents. On January 21st, 2021, Marjorie Taylor Greene filed articles of impeachment against President Joe Biden, the day after he was sworn into office. The vote this week is the culmination of the extreme MAGA Republican year-long agenda exacting political retribution on behalf of Donald Trump. It's painfully obvious that they are trying to hurt President Biden politically to help President Trump get reelected and distract from the fact that they have accomplished nothing. While House Republicans preside over the least productive Congress in modern history, the economic agenda of House Democrats and President Biden is delivering job creation, rising wages, and lower inflation. House Republicans are not serious about lowering costs. They've done nothing to protect families against gun violence or make our communities safer. They certainly aren't serious about the border. They actively oppose the president's plan to hire 1,000 new Customs and Border Patrol officers and 1,600 asylum officers to invest in technology to crack down against fentanyl trafficking. So when Speaker Johnson, Chairman Comer, and Marjorie Taylor Greene talked this week about transparency in the Constitution, remember that they had made up their mind years ago after the president delivered his oath of office. With that, I'll yield to Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Democrats put people over politics, and we have passed a series of laws to create jobs. At the same time, we also know that prices are high. And so we're laser focused on lowering costs. We have passed laws to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. We have also worked on reducing junk fees, and we're working to help people with their child care costs. And in terms of jobs, it has been amazing in terms of what has happened. Jobs report came out again last week showing that over 199,000 jobs were created above expectations. Unemployment declined. That was also above expectations. We have now had less than 4% unemployment for nearly 2 consecutive years. That's something that hasn't happened in over half a century. What are Republicans focused on? Impeachment, with no evidence. In fact, if you ask them today, they can't tell you even what crime they think Joe Biden has committed. They can't name a single policy action he's taken or any action he's taken that they believe is illegal. Republicans are focused on the wrong priorities, and next November, voters will have a choice. And we're so pleased to have with us the chair of the DCCC, Chairwoman Susan Delbene, who's going to explain to the American people the choice they have next November.
Thanks to both of you. It's great to be with you today. And of course, now I have to give a shout out to Michael Penix Jr. For an undefeated season. How about that? We just finished a caucus meeting with our Democratic colleagues down the street, and there's a lot of energy in the room around our work to take back the majority. Democrats are united around addressing the issues families are facing right now, and unfortunately, the same cannot be said of House Republicans. Instead of making progress on must-pass legislation to support our allies, lower costs for families, and protect Social Security, Speaker Johnson and extreme Republicans are ignoring the needs of working families across the country by wasting valuable time to pursue an illegitimate impeachment inquiry. This week's vote is a deeply cynical attempt to distract the public from the fact that they're doing nothing to make a difference in the lives of everyday families in their districts. And it's a perfect example of how out of touch House Republicans are. As I travel around the country talking to folks everywhere, no one asks about impeachment. They want to know what Congress is doing to help lower costs and make our communities safer. Just take a look at the front page of newspapers in battleground districts throughout the country, in Arizona, in Nebraska, in Pennsylvania. Not a single top story about the impeachment inquiry. The American people are taking note. Nearly 7 in 10 voters in competitive districts believe that House Republicans are focused on the wrong priorities. The vivid contrast between House Republicans and House Democrats could not be clearer. My colleagues and I, with the leadership of Hakeem Jeffrey and our caucus chair and co-chair, remain deeply committed to building a strong middle class and an economy that works for everyone. Meanwhile, extreme Republicans have given up on governing, and they're trying to distract the public from their ineptitude. We should be focused on funding the government. We should be focused on fiscal responsibility. We should be focused on crises at home and abroad. We should be focused on the American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Questions? Max?
Can you describe your meeting with President Zelensky and the message he delivered to House Democrats?
I was pleased to join Leader Jeffries and some members of our caucus to meet with President Zelensky. And I thought it was a productive meeting to hear an update from him. But the important takeaway is we have to do everything we can to help Ukraine fight for democracy, fight for their sovereignty. It's so incredibly important. We convey that the House Democratic Caucus stands with him, has stood with him, and will continue to. We talked about the importance of the resources, where those resources go, the accountability measures that the Ukrainians have put in place to help them and to help convey to the world that they are using these resources effectively. And also the fact that they are making progress, that they've retaken 50% of the land that was previously taken through Russian aggression. Those are some of the important pieces that we discussed, and we just thank him for coming out and the courage to come out here. Unfortunately, House Republicans didn't extend that offer to meet like the Senate did, to meet with all members. It would have been nice if Speaker Johnson conveyed that, but he didn't.
Chair Aguilar, I just want to get your thoughts on this. So obviously there was that education hearing last week. You had Congresswoman Elise Stefanik calling for the resignation of the university presidents. Harvard came out with a statement this morning saying that they will back their president. Stefanik has still come out saying that that is not an acceptable move. But there are Democrats who have been saying that Republicans on this front have been hypocritical when it comes to calling for the end of anti-Semitism, but they do not condemn the actions of white nationalists throughout the country. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you think that this needs to play out now as Republicans continue this call?
Yeah, I mean, this Republican call is, I think my first observation is discussions around Israel and anti-Semitism are so important, they're so impactful, they need to be also apolitical. We need to keep the politics out of this. This has been an issue of bipartisan discussion and concern in the past. My concern today is that House Republicans are doing everything they can to try to push forward these issues and make them partisan when there is clearly bipartisan support. There is bipartisan support to continue to stand with our colleague, our friends in Israel, as well as to ensure that we defeat Hamas, return hostages back, provide aid to the Palestinian people. Those are the topics that unite us. Those are the issues that unite us. The distraction around questions and college presidents, and that's Republicans just trying to further divide us. And I think that's unfortunate because this is a topic that screams for bipartisan support. And we're going to do our level best to make sure that we do that each and every term.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question for the D-Trip chair.
These are my favorite questions.
There's a special election coming up in a couple months in New York. Are you confident the party has learned from its shortcomings in New York last cycle to flip this seat this time around?
We have a great candidate running in New York 3, Tom Suozzi, former colleague of ours. And really, folks want to see someone that they can trust, who's going to bring integrity back to representation at New York's 3rd District. So this is an important election. He's already announced is doing a great job, and I don't think we know who his opponent is, but this is important, and it's about time that the people of New York's 3rd Congressional District had representation that they could trust.
I know Democrats are now launching a task force to try and tap into a rise in threats against members of Congress. Can you detail a little bit more about what those gaps are between, I know I talked to Congressman Carson, for instance, who expressed some frustrations about communicating with the Sergeant of Arms. What are Democrats' goals in the process?
Yeah, I'll defer a little bit to Leader Jeffries and Ranking Member Morelli, who is leading that effort up. And I've said before, one thing we don't talk about is individual member security issues, anything like that, just out of respect for the process. I'll say broadly, putting my House administration hat on from the last term, we continue to, House Democrats, continue to want to ensure that this Capitol Police, as well as the Sergeant at Arms, has the resources they need to protect everybody in this building, members, staff, press. It's been noted, and the Capitol Police Chief has said time and time again, that the threat level to members has risen exponentially over the past 6-7 years. Since the Donald Trump era, member threat levels have gone up. The individual threats that members receive. Members have had, to be honest, uneven responses to some of those threats. I think we can do better. I also think members need to avail themselves of the resources that exist, the personal security measures that the House has agreed to take on with respect to home securities and district office security. Members need to utilize that. Members also need to utilize local police, make sure that they have coordinated efforts and discussions with local law enforcement where the extent possible, so they can protect their district offices as well.
Is this a funding issue, and is there any sort of timeline when it comes to this task force coming up with, I guess, new solutions?
Yeah, I think that it's a funding issue, but it's also an issue. COVID hurt dramatically the Capitol Police and their ability to send people to academy. So I think they're building that back up. A number of retirements post January 6th as well. So they were in a deficit on an officer side. Again, these are questions for them, but House Democrats want to make sure that they have the resources to respond to all the threats. Threats to members, threats to the Capitol campus. And so I think you're going to see us continue to talk about that.
Last question, is there any renewed urgency given the Israel-Hamas situation?
Thank you. So on the meeting, is there any chance whatsoever that the supplemental gets done before the break, or is it just for conclusion given the calendar? And did President Zelensky or you raise the immigration issue?
No, the immigration and domestic politics issue was not addressed in our meeting. What I will say, the congressional calendar says that Thursday is the last day of votes. I'll let the majority leader speak to the calendar. I know the speaker has made some comments about members going home, members' ability to come back. I'll leave that to the Republican side of the aisle to decide. House Democrats stand ready, willing, and able to work to find a solution to unlock funding, humanitarian assistance, as I mentioned, to Israel and the Palestinians, as well as Ukraine funding, as well as funding for Israel in the Indo-Pacific region, as well as the southern border. So we stand ready and willing to engage on these topics and to provide assistance. But we also understand the timeline ahead of us. The calendar is a concern. The latest status and discussions, I'll leave to the Senate.
Last question. Another question for Chairwoman Delbene. Given the polarization and the dysfunction, not just in our body politic, but also in the current Congress, what are you hearing from candidates about why they want to run for Congress, why they want to be elected to Congress, given this tense moment that we see in our politics and in this Congress?
You know, our rights, our freedoms, and our democracy are at stake. And people want to run to stand up for our rights and our freedoms and our democracy. And we have Republicans have been taken over by the most extreme members of their party. We continue to see them become more and more extreme. And as we've mentioned today, the only focus they have right now is on an impeachment inquiry, nothing to do with the needs of the American people. So there are candidates across the country who are engaged and energized because they want to make a difference and because they want to stand up and be here to do what the American people want to see happen. Folks who are here to govern and to stand up for our rights, our freedoms, and our democracy.
So I just want to highlight what Chairwoman Delbene said about rights. We had, as all of you know, a few days ago, a woman in Texas who had a non-viable pregnancy, and it was also high risk, and this pregnancy could harm her. Texas Supreme Court ruled that she could not have an abortion, and what we're seeing now is Republicans carrying out what Donald Trump did. He campaigned on overturning Roe versus Wade. He then appointed ultra-religious justices who overturned Roe versus Wade. He then bragged about it. He also said women should be punished for having an abortion. And now you see Republicans carrying out Donald Trump's orders. That is what is at stake in November.